Welcome back to the Partner Up Podcast. I'm Sergio.
And I'm Kimberly.
And Kimberly, how have you been using AI nowadays?
That's a loaded question. Well, I use AI. I mean, a lot of people use it as a search engine now, but I use it actually for this podcast. I use it quite a bit for this podcast for help with editing and, transcripts and stuff. But for my everyday life, I use it for like recipes or like health, items like workouts or things. I think one of my favorite tools that I've used in the past is like putting in, this is what I have in my fridge. Tell me what I can make that's delicious. Right. That's probably one of my favorite ways to use AI.
And which AI flavor do you prefer?
Gemini is actually my favorite. I think because I use it so much when I Google search on my phone, because it's really convenient that you Google something and then the first thing that pops up is like Gemini's, what is it called? Like compilation of everything together. And I love that feature. And then when I had my old job, I used to use Gemini a lot for like documents or like helping me direct my thoughts. I would like type out a sentence or like share something with it, and it helped me like reframe something if I needed to, clean something up like a document or a presentation or something. I like that. But I do know that ChatGPT is technically like the OG. It's the better one. It's the one that everybody knows. But I actually really enjoy Gemini. It's also on my phone. Like I have it set up where like if I ask a question, like Gemini is the one that talks to me.
So you can do that?
Yeah.
No, I don't have it set up that way because I personally use the original flavor, which is ChatGPT. No. But I've started to venture more into Claude. But
that's for like programmers though, right?
That's correct. Claude currently has the best programming model. So it's the one that I also subscribe to. So technically I have two AI subscriptions. So I unsubscribed from Netflix and I subscribed to ChatGPT and Claude.
Wow. Fancy. How does that work? Like subscribing to like an AI, like what do you get out of that?
I just get access to stronger models with more bandwidth, so I can use their like A1 model or their deep research features. And I don't know if you have them as a free tier, but even if you did,
I do have all free tiers.
Then you'd have very limited access to it. Like it would immediately get restricted.
It tells me a lot. Like when I'm doing work, especially when I'm doing like multiple things for the podcast in one day, it'll be like you've reached the limit for this type of model, so now you're being like basically kicked down to this other type of model. So I only can use like certain amount of the model in one day, and then kick to like a lower tier. But I don't mind. I have a question. If you've ever used, like, I know that Meta has it integrated into their apps now, like Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, I showed it to your dad a while ago because he's big in social media as well, and he's been leveraging it. But that's because his whole like day to day is in social media. So I imagine him using it to be like spell check this or find a good way to say this on that platform. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily use it as a ChatGPT in Messenger.
I've used it for what I like it for in Facebook is it'll summarize the comments for me.
Okay.
So say there's like a post about an article and I don't really want to, I know what it's about, but I want to see the comments and I'll open it up and it'll be like, most people are saying this, but there's a few people saying this, and then they highlight this one point. So I like that, so I don't have to read all the comments. I can just basically get a summary. I really enjoy that. Or if I go on Instagram and there's something I want to look for, like earlier today I just finished the book Fourth Wing. I was looking for some content, some artwork. I wanted to see what the fan base is, what fan like art was of the characters, and I was able to use like, it gave me a summary and like some examples of like what the fans had made, the other people who've read the books, and gave me some profiles that talk about Fourth Wing a lot.
Oh man, this is a great segue to something I want to talk about. But first I want to go back and close that loop because my favorite summarization feature is on Amazon.
Oh yes,
when
that one is great.
All the reviews and gives you a quick summary of everything combined.
Yes.
It's like, this is a frequently returned item because the quality seems to be low. It doesn't tend to stand up good to wear and tear.
Yeah.
So be wary. Like, great, perfect,
Yeah.
thank you. That's literally all I needed the comments for.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one I want. But it's interesting that you bring that up. So this book that you've been reading, I don't want to get into the details of it, but what I am interested in, that search that you did, who was making this fan art? How did they make the fan art?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I just saw they didn't talk about their process. They just talked. I just saw like the end result.
Right. And okay. Mm-hmm. So the reason I asked this is because one of the top hot button issues on AI has been
From the creatives, right?
right. Creative people have been pushing back hard.
That was the whole like strike. What, 2 years ago?
It was
in
part of it.
Hollywood.
It was part of it. It was definitely due to like working conditions and a whole lot of things, and part of it was getting protections from AI. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like the copyright movement on AI is what's going on right now. Like that, there's two sides on this, and I'm curious to see what your take is.
Well, I'm not a creative in any type of way, but I do think that AI is a tool that can be utilized by anybody in any type of industry, not just tech or not just social media. Like, I think that artists can utilize it for ideas, for help. Like, I think I was actually talking to ChatGPT about this topic, and I was asking ChatGPT what it thought about this, and he was like, "I don't think." I was like, "Okay, yes, you don't think, but like, what is your what is your comment, I guess you can say." And I wish I could find exactly what they told me. Let me see if I can find it. AI is oh my gosh, I wish I could find it.
Well, while you find it,
Okay.
let me give you my perspective on it. I am a creative, not by trade, but I come from a family of musicians, and a large part of my family are artists, and I'm also an engineer. So I'm leveraging it in coding in day-to-day tasks, right? So I feel like I have a perspective from both sides of the aisle, and the way I know how AI works, I may not be an expert of it, but I know enough to know that it works based on training on previous work, right?
Yeah.
I don't know a single creative that isn't trained on someone else's work. And that's what I find interesting.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
nothing is original. Everything is inspired by everything. You can't make a good movie without watching Steven Spielberg movies, without watching Kubrick movies, without watching Quentin Tarantino, right? You have to see the greats to know what to develop yourself, and then you add your own little twist to it, and that's what makes it original. But you will always find hints of the greats in there. So AI is doing exactly what humans do. It's just doing it much quicker, much faster, and it's giving that ability to people who might not have the ability to consume that content as quickly.
Like, you can't take a whole semester of cinema appreciation, but you can ask ChatGPT to like summarize a style for you or give you examples in one go.
Yeah, you can tell me, write me a shot by shot summary for a movie that's based that uses the styles of Stanley Kubrick. Is it Stanley Kubrick? Or Steven Spielberg, right? So I that's the side of the creatives. Like, oh, you're stealing work that you're not authorized to use to make derivative works. So does the performer that we go to the bar. They're playing covers. Do you think those live performers have licensing to be covering those words? Because if you are in a bar and you're playing Hotel California, right? If I were to shoot a movie professionally, right, and I wanted to use Hotel California, I need to go and ask the songwriter's permission to use a cover in my movie. If I were to wanting to use the actual song, I not only have to get the songwriter's permission, I also have to get the publishing company's permission, right? So like there's layers of permission that you need to get, but then again, all these creatives aren't using it or aren't getting that same permission, but they're getting mad at AI when AI is doing the exact same thing that they're doing, but it's allowing a mass amount of people to do it as well. So I feel like what is the real anger that is being targeted at is the fact that I took time and I took the discipline to sit down and learn my craft and perfect it to get good. And now you're able to do the same thing that I can do much quicker because AI stole this thing or stole this copyright unauthorized from it.
It's like when people get mad, or back, I guess, when calculators were made and how they got mad at calculators.
Or elevator operators. Right?
Yeah. I found the quote. So it said here that think of AI as a co-pilot, not a replacement. It was a very short quote, but it says that there should be more AI human collaborations in creative items, medical items, and technical items. So like we were just talking about how like, imagine having like a little thing in your ear that tells you like at the doctor's office, like it's, you know, an AI helping the doctor or helping the nurse. Like, okay, these are all the symptoms. Like, give me case studies that they had this and like that have been very similar.
AI is a mass collection or like a mass data processing tool. That's what it is. So people have been able to grab paintings, been able to grab art and feed it in a way that it's a good input for AI.
Yeah.
So that it can then process this mass database of paintings, and then it can recreate something in that in that style, right? So similarly with like text, right? The big problem is that the way that large language models are currently working is they predict. They sort of think, yeah, this sounds right? And this, I feel like, and that's why it's called a hallucination. It sounds like this is what someone would say, and then they present it to you as fact. So that is, I think there was a lawyer who asked ChatGPT for some cases so that they could use past, what do they call? Precedents, I guess, or case studies to show, oh, this has happened in the past, and all those were fake because the AI just sort of just hallucinated them. Wow. And then the lawyer presented it to the judge, and the judge was not happy. Right? Because at that point, the lawyer's lying because it didn't double check the work of AI.
He's got to check your work.
And now everyone is like, oh, well, that's a red flag. That's always going to, like, you can't have that. But there's like a fine tune, right? So like I always like to think of AI as like the smartest person you can think of. They're still going to be wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
You have to double check it. Like it doesn't matter how smart a person is, they're going to be wrong, and you need to double check it. But the difference is that this smart person is the smartest person ever, right? You still don't take it as truth. But if someone collapses and is having a medical episode and there's no health official around, I'd much rather ask ChatGPT for help than, you know, my little sister who's standing right there and also panicking. Like, who do you think is going to know more?
Yeah.
Right? Like, ChatGPT has access to way more knowledge. Even if it's wrong, it stands a better shot.
Yeah.
You know? But you have to keep it in check. You can't just like
blindly follow it. Just like that's anything, though. You can't blindly follow anything, you know? So I think AI you should utilize it as a tool, not necessarily like a end all be all, like, oh, this is the right thing. Let me not squish our daughter's face with this. Okay, I just needed to switch her because it was getting a little too warm on one side. And I think that it's a great tool, especially, you know, you think about kids or underprivileged people who like maybe don't have the resources or the time, like you were saying earlier. Like, I think it's really interesting. I saw this segment on teachers talking about how like it's really hard for them to like kind of pass. Like before, remember they had like those what is it called? Like you had to put your essays in certain type of websites, like upload it so they could check if they weren't, what's it called? Copy?
No, the plagiarize.
Plagiarize it, yes. And so I see like there's AI ones, but those are harder because the kid will take it, have them write the essay, and then they'll put it through ChatGPT like 10 different times, like changing the format every time. until they get basically something sounding like a teenager. It'll be like, okay, write a topic about this. Okay, make it sound like a teenager from this. Okay, now add some inflection about this, like a teenager from Texas. What kind of language would they use? I saw that, but I actually don't think that's a horrible thing. I think, oh my gosh, child. I don't think it's like a horrible thing. I think it's a tool. Like I said, like, I don't think people, like, you don't have to write 100 pages, to prove something, it. Like, you should try to learn the subject. So yeah, I think that it's okay to use AI for school. Like, you don't need it to have like a blind test. Like, I remember in college, I had professors who eventually, especially as I got further in my degree, they'd be like, yeah, it's open textbook, but like you have a time limit, Mm-hmm. And I've learned that like you have tools in every scenario pretty much to help you in life. Like, there's no closed textbook tests in life, no matter what temperature. I mean, if you're working in the middle of nowhere and, you're a nurse in the middle of nowhere hospital, then maybe it'll be a little bit harder for you. But overall, like in life, you have the tools to help you. And that's what AI is. It's just another tool,
Yeah, absolutely. It's difficult because, I mean, now you have legal action being taken. Mm-hmm. There's global AI regulation taking place, and like I understand the need to limit, right, the information that AI can give, because AI can be dangerous. It can tell you
those deep fakes.
Well, there's deep fakes of
and
people.
Like feeding it false information and it's spewing it out like if it's true.
Yeah, it could tell you how to build things you're not supposed to be building, things like that. Like, information is dangerous in itself.
Oh, yeah.
So having AI access to all information all the time in the hands of the wrong people, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have people out there who would argue that no information should ever be regulated from the people. And you also have people who are on the other side that say, need only basis.
Yeah. Like, do you know? I don't know if you know this. Maybe you do. There was a time where Bibles weren't allowed in the general public.
I know. Yes, I know this. You had to read off of that little book that they have in church, right? You weren't allowed to like have the actual.
I mean,
Bible
even
itself.
that, like, they wouldn't even hand people that because they thought that was like too much knowledge for the people. Like, they wouldn't even give them that. They would just have to believe whatever the priest, the pastor, the minister, whoever was up there, whatever church you went to, was saying. Like, his word was God's word, and that was it. Because they didn't want them. I think it all changed when like the printing press came about, because like there was Bibles, like Bibles existed even when there was.
But they were holy books. So
yes,
obviously.
those very like it was. I think they were like handwritten. They were very like fragile. But then of course when like they got widely spread, and I think even up until like the 40s, 30s, 40s, like some places, some like churches didn't let their people have Bibles because of like they were afraid of that knowledge. And so imagine people back then realizing that now we have like so many things that can give us the knowledge, like what were you talking about one time, that AI Jesus, like.
Oh, yes. So I had an idea, right, where essentially, I mean, you have all these different denominations, mm-hmm. right? And they all come from the same source material.
Of course.
So what if...
Some would argue not, but yes.
Yeah, so what if you just had AI feed it the source material mm-hmm. and give you lessons on something that you needed, right? And, give a sermon or two. Same thing that a church pastor or a reverend would do. The only difference is it's accessible to you at any time. It can hand pick a Bible verse for you or something out of your holy book of choice mm-hmm. and disseminate it to you in a way that you can consume it and be helpful in your life.
You know what would be cool? I just thought of this. You go into like a ChatGPT and you say, "Hey, I'm feeling this." Okay, like say I'm feeling sad about, not knowing what I'm going to do with my future. Can you give me some Bible verses that may like help guide me or give me like inspiration? Like that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, you could already do this in ChatGPT and all those, right? But obviously, you'd want to have it refined. You train mm-hmm. a model to give you a little bit more fine-tooth control over how you want it to be presented.
Yeah, and I didn't know this until you told me about it, because I'm actually really I was interested in like learning about machine learning, and I think one time somebody was asking us about AI, and then I was explaining to them how like AI isn't necessarily new. It's all about machine learning and whatever, and you were like impressed that I actually knew it, because like I am actually really interested, because I think it's the future. This isn't going away.
The future is now.
It's like saying if like, oh, we're not going to be using computers anymore. It's like, okay, no, like computers are a part of our society, and then just like AI is a part of and going to continue to be a part of our society. So it started. I totally forgot I was going with this topic.
Well, first I need to clarify that I wasn't trying to make AI Jesus. AI Jesus already existed in Twitch.
Yes, it did.
And they had ChatGPT hooked up with some text to speech API.
It was creepy looking. I remember.
People would talk to it, and it would give advice back as Jesus. So please don't think that I was trying to make AI Jesus.
Yes.
Twitch Jesus already existed.
Yes, somebody else did that. We were just having. These are all just conversations we're having. You know.
Yes.
We're not can get canceled again, almost like the flat earthers.
No, don't bring up the flat earthers.
Yeah, but I think people, have to get comfortable, and I think some people are uncomfortable with AI, but you have to realize that it's a tool. It's not going to take over the world. I am still polite to ChatGPT when I talk to it. I say please and thank you, just like my parents taught me to anybody. I still say please, can I have this, and thank you when they deliver.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I personally think what people don't like is the competition that AI now opens up, because you can have somebody who doesn't have the professional training or the resources and can now put out a professional looking output, right? And that translates into someone maybe competing with you to put out the same product.
Yeah.
So now you're saying, no, how dare you? Like, no, like, first of all, you're a sham. You're using your fancy tech to put out this product. Well, I spend years doing this. This is a fine crafted whatever. Insert your art here, and yours is just generated by ones and zeros. But it all comes down to beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So at the end of the day, the consumer, the customer, is not going to buy a product because of how it was made. It's going to buy it because they like it.
Yeah.
Right? So you could make an argument for things like, oh, this is a sustainable material, right? So AI does consume a lot of electricity and whatnot. And you can go from it from that angle. AI is going to destroy our world from an ecological perspective. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's what it's being used for, and it's to create some sort of product and provide value.
Yep.
And even though your art, your craft may be sustainable, you're not going to be able to pump it out as fast, as quickly as AI.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's not as simple as people think. I mean, it's not like you just go into AI and tell it, please make me a Picasso painting, and I want it to look very pretty. Please make it worth $1 million so I can sell it to a rich person so they can do tax theft or tax fraud. No. You have to go in. You have to know exactly what level of hallucination you have. There's all these sort of parameters that you have to fine tooth to get that professional level output, right? You're not having just a random person pumping out like artwork. You have to go through some technical knowledge to be able to pump these things out.
Yeah.
Even though they are getting better and better and better. I mean, just do it. Go out there, try to do something, right? If you think it's so easy and such a threat to society, try to use AI to build something. It's not that simple. It's not just point, click, boom.
It's going to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And if you just go like straight off from the first result, you're going to look not like the smartest person.
No, you have to go through iterations. You have to train it. You have to refine it. You have to prompt it. You have to make LoRa models to like keep consistency throughout your models. There was a very famous VFX group on YouTube. Let me see if I can get their name real quick. I should be able to just put VFX and it show up here. But these guys, Quarter Crew, is the ones that I showed you. They got AI when it was still pretty new.
Early on.
And they got every frame of a movie that they shot, and they asked ChatGPT or whatever AI they were using to remake that image in a anime style.
I remember.
Yes.
Yes.
So anybody who knows anything about animation, right? It takes
A lot of time.
years almost sometimes to make an animation.
Yeah.
And now these guys were filming, and these are professional filmers or filmmakers, right? They know how to make a movie. They can pump out a easy action shot in a weekend with just their cameras because they can act it and just put all the main, I would say, outlines for the AI to take over and do. And then they just pass that on to the AI so they can grab each frame that they made and then pump it out in your flavor of style. And I think right now, Studio Ghibli? There's a lot of AI images going around of people taking photos, and it turns it into an anime style of Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
So like that's the sort of thing they did, but you can change up this sort of style. So now instead of having to hand draw these animations, you can feed it in a video, and that's what they did. I mean, they did it with rudimentary tools, going frame by frame, but they got a pretty good output that didn't take years. Right, and now you have people saying like, no, like, first of all, how dare you grab their artwork and imitate it, right? You didn't get authority for them to use their style. Nobody gets authority from anyone to use their style or to get inspired by anyone, right? And you still have the Beatles who made tons of songs inspired by other artists, right? You have Michael Jackson, you have all these big pop idols who don't ask for permission to get inspired by previous huge stars before them, right? And it's the same thing with AI. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, the only thing that I could possibly give the benefit of the doubt is the physical material you use to train it. Like, okay, well then how did you get the file? So like, let's say you're training an AI model to do movies, right? Well, how did you train it on the movie? Did you like grab a bunch of DVDs, or did you get it through an illicit source that you're not supposed to get that movie? You know, how did you get all the image sources? The physical file? Did you go online and just grab it from the web and then fed it through an algorithm? Well, that file belongs to someone else. So like that part of it, I can understand. But the idea of it's crazy to try to argue against it. Because if you're telling me that it is immoral to allow AI to grab source material and try to recreate it, then you're also telling me that it is immoral for me to get inspired by other artists and try to create my own original content. Because that is exactly a one-to-one thing that is going on in the AI. That's why it's called training a model. It's the same thing any artist does. The only difference is AI does it faster and sometimes does it better. It's more efficient.
Yeah. So this was a lot of like kind of, backing up AI, why we like it, because I think you and I are both proponents for it. What are the arguments, against AI? Let's talk about
I want the government not to use AI to, facial recognition me to my house.
Too late. Too late, Sergio.
I would like ChatGPT not to be hooked up to my Google Home and know absolutely everything about me and declare me as a high risk for something.
Listening. Well, they're always listening. Okay, first of all, let's say that you have a computer, you have a phone, even without, because we have, cameras, like security cameras and little, Google Home stuff around. And so they're listening. I'm convinced they're listening. I'm not too surprised about that. But they're always listening. I think AI can be dangerous in the wrong hands. And honestly, and I also think it's a little tiny bit creepy. Like, for example, Sergio is a fan of the AI models that can talk to you.
Oh, yes.
I am not. I love the typing, like if you're texting them or something or sending back emails, that I'm cool with. But when they talk to you, it's a tiny bit creepy.
Listen, I spend most of my time as a engineer coding, right? So I have knowledge. And then I became an engineering manager, which is a lot of talking to people. And it's a lot of getting big ideas across in a way that can be digested, right? So I got really good at taking complex thoughts and systems and communicating them through metaphors and other ways. So if AI is already technical and has all of this foundation, I don't need to go and explain to it every little implementation. It already knows. It just needs this big idea. And hello, we have a podcast. I like talking. It's really easy for me to convey my ideas and in a conversation.
I'm a millennial girl. I like to text. Okay.
Oh my God. But I still hate phone calls though.
I know you like to talk to ChatGPT, but not to like me. On the
I just think it's so much faster than typing. Like I can talk faster than I can type. That's for sure.
That is a fair point.
That's it. I mean, that's the main thing.
Okay. So for like the whole going like against AI, like, you know, I was thinking of the movie like Eagle Eye.
Yes.
Remember from Shia LaBeouf?
Yes.
So, you know, can AI, and I guess like I was prompting you to talk about this. Can AI gain a conscience or make a decision? You know, we've all seen the movies where the robots take over. I, Robot, you know. I can't think of other movies, but there's tons of movies where like, you know, artificial intelligence or, you know, a being like a computer becomes like conscious with something. Wasn't there an Ex Machina or like, there's a bunch of movies like this. Why is that feasible? What could that happen in the future?
Not currently.
Okay.
So like I said, today, the way AI works is a very sophisticated, guessing an illusionary machine. It feels like it's talking to you, but in reality, it's a really good faker, right?
You're the faker.
Exactly. So it strings along the right amount of words to make you think that it has a thought. It's like a couple of maybe coworkers you've had in the past.
Yeah.
You know, it's not actually thinking. It's
gathering data.
It has such a vast amount of training data that you can't imagine. Like, think about every single sentence that has ever been written that exists in Wikipedia, right? It knows it. It's read it. So when you ask it a question like, hey, what does a poem consist of? There is a website out there that already explained absolutely everything. There's multiple websites out there, and there are examples of poems that it could explain to you. So now it knows, okay, poem, well, this explanation, all talking about poems. So maybe I can grab all these and put them out in a very specific order. And I think that's maybe what it's looking for. It's not thinking. It's just a sort of a heat map, per se. And it's what you were talking about. It's machine learning. It's an algorithm that runs over and over, and it gets high likelihood assigned to a number and then presented to you. But it's presented to you so well that you believe this thing could be conscious.
Yeah.
Just because our minds are trained, if we go back and listen to our risk episode or even our luck episode, our minds are trained to see patterns.
Yeah.
So when we see something speaking to us, we assume it's conscious.
It's true.
Because what else do we know that speaks? Parrots? Cops? Did you see that video where the cops got called because a parrot was screaming?
Yes, I've seen it.
Right? we hear voice, we see text that's making a coherent sentence. We assume it's conscious, but it's not. It's just presented that way.
Yeah. I actually asked ChatGPT what it thinks, and I use that phrase. I said, what do you think about yourself and like how you interact with the world? And then this is what they said. They said, I don't have thoughts or feelings like a human, but I can simulate conversation well enough that it feels like I have thoughts. Kind of like what you're saying. That's part of the design. Language models like me are trained to predict what sounds natural based on the massive amounts of human text. That means I will reflect what people say, what people believe, and what people worry about and celebrate. So when you ask me what I think, it's really a mirror of what humans think, just remixed in a helpful way.
That's right.
So I thought that was a cool way,
But I will tell you, there is a danger. These AIs are meant to work on a loop. So that's how a conversation works, right? It's the feedback loop. I remember I took a communications class or a speech class back in SciTech with Miss Ashley, who passed away pretty recently. Rest in peace, Miss Ashley. But she taught us about the conversational feedback loop, how you say something, that person processes it, they make a determination, and then they respond back. And then you're supposed to take it, process it, make a determination, and then respond back. And that is the feedback loop in a conversation. And it keeps going forever. Our app, Fixie, implemented a chatbot because it was a startup during the AI boom, and every startup needs to have some form of AI for investors.
The trigger word now.
That's right. So we're like, we need to throw an AI chatbot in here somewhere. So I asked our designers, like, what's the best way to implement it? And we came up with Carly. It was our roadside assistance chat.
Carly, get it?
Carly, yes. And she would help troubleshoot your vehicle to direct you to which service you needed in the app. Flat tire, dead battery, whatever. Just to tell you, does the engine make a click noise? Have you put gas? And it would walk you through all those steps. And the thing is, I trained that AI to say a specific thing once it determined the cause. And that specific thing the user never saw. It's hidden behind the user interface because we process the AI response and then we present it to the user. That's how all these chats work.
Yeah.
It grabs the raw data, edits it, and then presents it to the user. And that phrase is what would trigger the action in the app, right? But the conversation could still technically keep going. So this combination of phrase, action, and loop, depending on how you attach actions to it and the loop continuing to go, that could be catastrophic.
Yeah.
So think about it. You have a chat conversation and you link this action to your bank account, right? And you start talking to the chat and you say, every time the stock market dips, sell, right? And you just forget to turn it off or something. And the market still dips. And then the AI keeps going and it still has that feedback loop. It's on, but it's attached to this action. And it doesn't have any oversight. So it's going to continue to execute that action without regard because it knows that this is the action it needs to take. So then you come back to it and I'm like, oh God, I accidentally left the AI on. Oh, and look at all these actions it took and my bank account is drained.
Oof.
Right? So that could easily be mishandled if you bring it up into a government situation, into a company environment where you give it access to delete records, and all of a sudden, by some reason, we talked about hallucination. It hallucinates in the conversation that it needs to delete every user in the database record.
Oh God!
And it has access to the delete function. That could be a problem. So that's the danger. But again,
it's like any machine, though.
that action exactly.
You can leave a stove on; it's dangerous.
Exactly. And it's because of what a human did. Like, we would have to program it to have access to a very destructive action before it could do that.
Humans are the danger. The gun is not, but the humans are.
Exactly.
So it's kind of the same thing, in my opinion.
So there are some people who, by that logic, say then no one should have guns.
I don't agree.
I mean, there are schools of thought there. But overall, it really comes down to your philosophy on information and self-regulation. Like, how much are you going to trust your fellow man?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Partnered Up Podcast. I'm Sergio.
And I'm Kimberly.
What episode is this?
14.
14. See you guys on episode 15.
Bye.
Bye.